Self and identity are cognitive heuristic constructions that allow us to make sense of the world, and provide continuity in the same way we create constellations from the situation of stars, imagining Ursa Major, the Little Dipper, or something else. The self and identity are essentially expressions of apophenia. Hi, I'm Bry. This is an extension of my Philosophics blog at http://philosophicsblog.wordpress.com, where I write about philosophical topics that I find interesting. I also engage in political and economic conversations. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Let's get started. Consider this thought experiment about responsibility. Rob decides to rob a bank. He spends weeks casing the target location. He makes elaborate plans, drawing maps, and noting routines and schedules. He gets a gun, and one day he follows through on his plans, and he successfully robs the bank, escaping with a large sum of money, in a box with the name of the bank printed on it. Rob is not a seasoned criminal, and so he leaves much incriminating evidence at the scene. To make it even more obvious, he drops his wallet at the scene of the crime, containing his driver's license with fingerprints, and DNA on the license and other contents of his wallet. He leaves prints and DNA on the counter, where he waited for the money. This wallet even contains a handwritten checklist of steps to take to rob this bank, the address of the bank, the time and date. All of this left no doubt who robbed the bank. Using this evidence, the police show up at Rob's apartment to arrest him. They knock on the door, and identify themselves as law enforcement officers. Rob opens the door, and invites them in. All of the purloined money is still in the box with the name of the bank printed on it. It's on a table in plain sight, next to the gun he used. All of his maps, plans and surveillance notes are in the room, too. They read him his rights, and arrest him. Things aren't looking good for Rob. Before I continue this narrative, ask yourself, is Rob responsible for robbing the bank? Let's ignore the question of whether Rob is agency. For this example, I am willing to ignore my contention that no one has, or can have, agency. Besides, the court will continue to presume agency long after it's been determined that it is impossible, because agency is a necessary ingredient to law and jurisprudence. Is Rob responsible? Should he be convicted of armed robbery and sentenced to incarceration? Let's make it even easier. This isn't Rob's first offense. In fact, he's been in prison before, for some other crimes he committed. He's no first-time offender. Why do you think that he's responsible? More importantly, why should he be convicted and sentenced? What should his sentence be? Consider that the money has been recovered, no one was injured, and Rob didn't resist arrest. At first glance, we might consider both restorative and retributive justice. I've purposely made it easy to ignore restorative justice, as all the money was recovered. This leaves us with retributive justice. What should happen to Rob? What would you do if you were the judge? Why? Hold that thought. Let's continue the narrative. All of the above happened, but I left out some details. Because of course I did. After the heist, Rob returned home and he lost his balance and hit his head, rendering him an amnesiac, diagnosed with permanent retrograde and dissociative amnesia. Because of the retrograde amnesia, Rob can't remember anything prior to hitting his head. Because of the dissociation, Rob has no recollection of anything about himself, not even his name. In fact, he now only responds to the name, Ash. This is where I debate whether to have Rob experience a gender identity swap, but I convince myself to slow my roll and focus on one thought experiment at a time. To make this as obvious as I can consider, Ash has no recollection of Rob, robbing the bank, or anything about Rob. Ash doesn't know Rob's friends or family. Ostensibly Ash is a different person inhabiting former Rob's body. To make it even easier, Ash is not feigning this condition. So let's not try to use that as an out when I ask you to reconsider responsibility. If my experience serves as a guide, if I asked you about your response to whether Rob was responsible and what his sentence should be, you would be committed to your same response and for the same reasons, so I won't ask again. What I ask now is if Ash is responsible, and what his sentence should be. Keep in mind that we should be able to ignore the restorative element, and focus on the retributive aspect. What should happen to Ash? What would you do if you were the judge? Whether your response has changed, or remained the same, why would you judge Ash this way? Here are some considerations. Retributive justice might serve as a lesson to other would-be offenders. The public may not believe the amnesia excuse, even though you as judge, are convinced thoroughly. Ash does not believe he committed the crime and does not comprehend the charges. Ash was surprised to discover the money and gun and was pondering how it got there, and what to do with it when the police arrived at his apartment. If released, Ash would not commit a crime in the future. My thought experiment, my rules, the point being that Ash was no threat to society. From my perspective, Ash is a different person. Sentencing Ash is ostensibly the same as sentencing any person arbitrarily. The purpose of this experiment is to exaggerate the concept of multiple selves. Some have argued that there is no self, there is just a constructed narrative stitching discrete selves together to create a continuous flow of selfness. So there you have it. I hope you found this thought experiment interesting. I share more perspectives on this and other philosophical topics on my Philosophics blog at http://philosophicsblog.wordpress.com. If you did find this interesting, click like. Click subscribe to keep up on future posts. And if you want to be alerted when I do, click the bell icon down below. I'm interested in hearing what you think. Is Ash responsible for Rob's action, and why, or why not? Let me know. Again, this is Bry, and I hope to be sharing new content soon. Cheers.